For the past 3 weeks, we've seen so many people in the access media desperately try to spin Snow White into some kind of success story, or to make Rachel Zegler look like the victim in this entire disaster.
And it is actually so bad that Rachel Zegler decided to post a video of herself in a theater. Maybe I think she bought that ticket right there.
You ever wonder what happens when you mix hot lava and chicken?
Looks like Rachel Zegler just had a full-on meltdown after seeing the opening numbers for the Minecraft movie. And honestly, who could blame her? The pixelated underdog didn't just beat Snow White at the box office, it absolutely annihilated it. Talk about a brutal reality check. With a jaw-dropping $300 million global opening weekend, it stomped on every expectation, turning what critics mocked as a kids' game adaptation into one of the year's biggest box office monsters.
We saw the opening weekend, we saw the massive drop-off, and it was obvious from the beginning that this movie was going to lose money for Disney. We just weren't quite sure how many hundreds of millions of dollars that it would lose.
Meanwhile, Snow White crawled into theaters with all the energy of a flat soda. After 3 weekends, it barely cracked $77 million worldwide. Yes, you read that right. A Disney tentpole remake, a project that should have been a slam dunk, was outperformed in just 2 days by a film made from literal blocks. What's worse? This wasn't a fluke. Every single projection leading up to the release warned Disney this would happen. But the studio ignored the red flags and doubled down, convinced that brand recognition alone would carry them to box office gold. Spoiler, it didn't.
Even just a few days ago, you have headlines like this from Screen Rant. Snow White is now Rachel Zegler's second highest grossing movie despite the controversy, and she deserves so much more.
Early screenings of Minecraft had fans cheering like it was a concert. Packed theaters, sold-out showings, kids losing their minds in the aisles. On the flip side, Snow White showings were a ghost town. Empty seats. Awkward silence. Even die-hard Disney fans couldn't pretend to be excited. Analysts were stunned. For months, experts insisted Minecraft would be too childish, too niche, too blocky for mainstream audiences. But instead of crashing, it soared, while Snow White became a meme overnight.
Well, people weren't falling for this. They didn't fall for it when so many Access media members went out with those first reactions to say how spectacular the movie was. They didn't trust them. And then the people that did actually see it despised the movie.
The numbers weren't just embarrassing. They were humiliating. Snow White had Disney's full marketing muscle behind it. Multi-million-dollar promos, high-profile press junkets, and a legacy name that once defined the company's brand. And still, it got destroyed. And this was just the beginning. Because as bad as the numbers were, the real drama was still to come. But what triggered this total collapse? The answer lies with one very loud, very controversial leading lady. If the Snow White remake had a single point of no return,
one of the lowest scores we've seen for a movie in history over on IMDb, and now in its third weekend at the box office, it has now become undeniable.
It wasn't the awkward CGI dwarves. It wasn't even the clunky trailers. It was Rachel Zegler and her mouth. Before a single frame hit theaters, Zegler lit the internet on fire with one tone-deaf interview after another. She dismissed the original Snow White as creepy, mocked the prince character, and rolled her eyes at the idea of a love story. And just like that, decades of beloved Disney magic were thrown under the bus by its own star. In one viral clip, she laughed off the original plot, saying, "It's 2025, not 1937. In another, she doubled down. "If you don't like it, I don't need your business."
Even to the most ridiculous shills, that this thing is going to be a massive loss for Disney, because when we look, you can see families were more than willing to go to the box office to support something like the Minecraft movie, while Rachel Zegler's Snow White continues to plunge.
That wasn't just bad PR, it was gasoline on an already smoldering fire. Fans weren't just turned off, they were furious. For many, Zegler wasn't modernizing the story, she was mocking it. The same fairy tale that built the Disney empire, that shaped childhoods around the world. was now being treated like outdated trash by the very person cast to carry its legacy. It didn't take long for the backlash to spiral. Social media erupted with memes, rants, and full-blown boycott calls. People weren't just skipping the movie, they were actively rooting for it to fail.
And lo and behold, Rachel Zegler, who is not done posting L's, and it is a remarkable, legendary run of L's.
And here's the kicker. Rachel Zegler was a relative newcomer. She wasn't a seasoned star with years of goodwill built up. She was fresh off West Side Story, still finding her place in Hollywood, and suddenly, she was the public face of Disney's most controversial remake. The irony? She didn't write the script. She didn't direct the film. But she became the lightning rod for everything fans hated about the project, a symbol of how out of touch Disney had become with its own audience. Critics tried to defend her. Disney stayed mostly silent, but the damage was already done.
Guys, it's Benny. The future of Hollywood is being battled out right now in theaters as two live-action remakes from the biggest studios in Hollywood go head-to-head and compete for younger audiences, which of course is the lifeblood of the film industry. Warner Brothers' Minecraft movie versus Disney's Snow White.
Ziegler's comments weren't seen as progressive. They came off as smug, ungrateful, and wildly disconnected from the people the film was meant to serve. And while the internet was dragging her across every platform, things inside Disney were unraveling even faster. While Rachel Zegler was catching heat from every corner of the internet, the real chaos was happening behind closed doors, inside the Disney boardrooms. According to insiders, panic set in weeks before the premiere. Test screenings were flat. Audience feedback was brutal. Early projections looked grim, and yet the studio stayed the course, doubling down on a film that was already sinking. Executives began turning on each other. Some blamed the script. Others pointed fingers at marketing for failing to pivot when controversy erupted. And looming over everything was one question nobody could answer. Why didn't anyone stop Rachel from talking?
Which in theory should be quite a battle, but it's not even a fair fight, and it's pretty hysterical actually to watch.
Behind the scenes, several execs reportedly pushed to rein her in. Limit interviews, tighten talking points, take control of the narrative. But those efforts were either ignored or came too late. By the time Disney realized how bad the backlash was, Zegler's sound bites had already gone viral a dozen times over. And it wasn't just her. Every element of the film felt like it had been greenlit by a committee that didn't understand, or care, what made the original Snow White beloved. Characters were changed. Iconic scenes were scrapped. The entire tone shifted from magical to preachy. And the fans noticed. Then came the casting controversy. When Disney announced that a Colombian-American actress would play a character famously described as having skin white as snow, it sparked an immediate firestorm. Supporters praised the move as inclusive. Traditionalists called it disrespectful to the original fairy tale. The debate overshadowed the actual content of the film, and Disney didn't seem prepared for the fallout.
Snow White, of course, famously played by the insufferable girl boss narcissist, who's just clinical at this point, saying that
for a company that built its reputation on airtight branding and family-friendly storytelling, this was a total systems failure. No clear leadership, no unified message. Just damage control. And not very good damage control at that. As fan fury intensified, the studio went eerily silent. No apologies, no course correction. Just a slow, awkward rollout of a film nobody wanted to claim responsibility for. But while Disney was fumbling its legacy IP, the Minecraft team was quietly doing everything right, and the contrast couldn't be more brutal. At the heart of Disney's Snow White disaster wasn't just a bad script, it was a broken mindset. What once was a simple fairy tale about love, jealousy, and wonder was twisted into a clunky vehicle for modern messaging.
audiences will always line up to see her no matter what she
At
does.
every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And not the subtle kind. We're talking about in-your-face, aggressively preachy rewriting that sucked the magic out of the story. Multiple insider leaks confirmed what fans suspected. The script went through several major rewrites, each one injecting more updated values and less of what made the original enchanting. Gone was the romance. Gone was the whimsy. In its place, a painfully obvious checklist of ideological talking points. Instead of letting the story speak for itself, Disney tried to fix Snow White, correcting its themes, rewriting its characters, and tossing aside its fairy tale roots. The evil queen was no longer a jealous villain. She was a metaphor for toxic beauty standards. The prince? Irrelevant. The dwarves? Replaced with CGI creatures that felt like placeholders in a failed tech demo. This wasn't just modernization. It was overcorrection. It felt less like a movie and more like a message one delivered with the grace of a sledgehammer.
You know what's interesting about all of this is that the only person waiting in line to see Snow White was Rachel Zegler.
And fans noticed. Reviews from early screenings were brutal. Words like condescending, lifeless, and lecture disguised as a film showed up again and again. Even critics who supported the movie's intent admitted it lacked soul. Meanwhile, viewers couldn't help but ask, who was this movie even for? It wasn't for kids. The fun had been drained out. It wasn't for fans of the original. It disrespected the source. And it clearly wasn't for the general public, who, judging by the box office numbers, didn't show up at all. Disney bet everything on messaging over magic, and that gamble didn't just fail. It blew up in their face. But while Snow White was busy rewriting itself into oblivion, Minecraft was winning by doing the exact opposite, staying true to its roots and giving fans exactly what they wanted.
Rachel Zegler then inexplicably continued to post herself in an empty theater for her own movie. She's literally the only person there. And do you not understand how humiliating this is?
While Disney was tangled in controversy and rewriting a classic into a lecture, Minecraft pulled off something Hollywood rarely manages anymore. It actually listened to its audience. The Minecraft movie didn't come with lectures or preachy themes. It didn't try to fix anything. It didn't apologize for being fun. Instead, it delivered exactly what fans wanted: a colorful, chaotic, and unapologetically goofy adventure that captured the spirit of the game and nothing else. From the very first trailer, it was clear. This movie wasn't trying to win Oscars or score political points. It was just trying to entertain, and that was exactly what audiences were starving for. And let's talk about the casting. Jack Black, in peak chaotic form, voicing one of the lead characters, brought the kind of wild energy only he can deliver.
Meanwhile, the experience at Minecraft goes something like this.
Sure, he's been controversial before. But when it comes to putting butts in seats, the guy's a proven box office weapon. Audiences showed up in force. Some showings were so packed, it felt like a live concert. Kids were cheering. Teens were quoting lines before the movie even ended. At one theater, cops literally had to escort a group of rowdy teenagers out because they were having too much fun. When's the last time that happened during a Disney screening? The numbers speak for themselves. Critics, as usual, rolled their eyes. Minecraft sat at a lukewarm 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. But the audience score? A blazing 87%. And in 2025, that's what matters. Because critics don't pay for tickets. Real people do. Even more impressive, Minecraft made over $300 million globally in just one weekend, more than Snow White managed in its entire theatrical run. Why? Because Minecraft knew what it was. A movie for fans, not a lecture for strangers. It respected the source material. It embraced the silliness. And it gave families a reason to go back to theaters again. But that wasn't the only thing fans noticed. While Minecraft celebrated its roots, Disney was actively insulting theirs, and the backlash was only getting louder. Disney didn't just disappoint fans, they dismissed them. From the moment Rachel Zegler started throwing shade at the original Snow White, longtime Disney supporters spoke up. They warned the studio. This wasn't what they wanted. They weren't asking for political lectures. They wanted fairy tales, not finger-wagging. But instead of listening, Disney doubled down. Test audiences called the movie dull. Online buzz turned toxic. Even loyal Disney fans started checking out. Still, the studio pushed forward like nothing was wrong. brushing off criticism as ignorance or resistance to progress. That arrogance backfired hard. What could have been a billion-dollar tribute to Disney's roots became a massive, public rejection. Because when fans tell you what they want and you roll your eyes, they stop showing up. And while Disney alienated their audience, Minecraft turned theirs into a movement. When Snow White bombed, Disney didn't take responsibility. They let Rachel Zegler take the fall. Yes, her interviews were arrogant. Yes, her comments turned fans off. But she didn't write the script. She didn't approve the changes. She was just the loudest face attached to a broken product. Behind the scenes, insiders say Disney execs were in chaos, blaming marketing, blaming each other, but never addressing the real issue. They changed a classic so much, it became unrecognizable. Zegler became the scapegoat because it was easier than admitting the truth. But fans saw through it. The problem wasn't just her, it was the entire machine behind her. And it all came to a head when Disney made one decision that enraged fans more than anything else. Minecraft didn't win because it had a deep message or flashy visuals. It won because it gave people exactly what they were craving: fun, simplicity, and respect for the source material. Meanwhile, Snow White failed because Disney tried to fix what wasn't broken. They stripped away the heart of a timeless story and replaced it with lectures no one asked for. Audiences noticed. And they walked away. The lesson here isn't complicated. People don't hate change. They hate being talked down to. They don't want fairy tales rewritten to make a point. They want stories that feel timeless, not preachy. Hollywood keeps making the same mistake. But with every flop, the message gets louder. Tell good stories, respect your audience, and stop confusing activism with entertainment. Because if a blocky video game can beat the biggest name in animation, maybe it's time the industry rethinks who they're really making movies for. So, what do you think? Did Disney lose touch? Or is the audience just harder to please? Drop your take in the comments, because this debate is far from over. And if you want more breakdowns, backlash, and behind-the-scenes chaos from Hollywood's biggest meltdowns, you know what to do. Subscribe, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.